Welcome everyone to the Traction Rec webinar. Obviously, there's something must be going on. It's the eve of Halloween. Otherwise, why would we look so silly over on the Traction Rec side? Um, maybe start just at first, like welcome and thanks everyone for joining. Inspired at Traction Rec, we're inspired every day by the work that our customers do, and so an opportunity to tell any of their stories is one that we really jumped at. And today we have an opportunity to do that with the team from the Greater Philadelphia YMCA, and we'll introduce them in just a minute. We working with so many community organizations, we have a lot of conversations around childcare, and we understand just the immense amount of change that's happening in that market. And it's kind of, you see shift in demand, you see rising expectations from parents, you see shifting funding, and all of it, comes with the goal of how do you just provide more early education to kids. So some really great places it comes from, but it's a hard business to run. At Traction Rec, we work with organizations like YMCAs, JCCs, Boys and Girls Club, who have a huge amount of youth development they do. I think collectively between those organizations, they cover probably 1 in 6 youth across North America. So a phenomenal scale and reach. And nobody is probably feeling the aspects of all these changes in childcare more than they are. So I'm going to slightly remove my toddler's Halloween costume for tomorrow so that I can see a little bit better. And I'm going to take that opportunity and introduce some of our speakers for today, and a little bit of the content we'll get into. So today we're joined from the Greater Philadelphia YMCA by Jen Sigelkin, who's the Senior VP of Youth Development. And Jen, I'll go through introductions for everyone, but I'll ask you to kick us off with a little introduction for yourself. And can you please answer our highly critical icebreaker question of, do you believe in pineapple on pizza?
I do believe in pineapple on pizza, but only every once in a while. Not, sparingly. I'm Jen Segelkin. I support the Greater Philadelphia YMCA in our youth development work. Really proud to work with a great team here supporting our early learning centers, before and after school enrichment, funded out of school time, day camp, and overnight camp operations.
Thanks, Jen. I like where you're going with your pizza answer as a teaser for my own. But I'll move over and also give a chance to introduce Tony Bell, who's a business process analyst with the Greater Philadelphia YMCA, and with that organization for nearly 17 years. And Tony, same question to you, of course. Are you a believer of pineapple on pizza?
It is my favorite. I can't say the same for my family, so I can't eat it that much. But definitely number one in my book. And yes, I've been with the Greater Philadelphia Y this is my 17th year. So yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks to both of you for taking some time out to join us and tell a bit of your story. From the Traction Rec team, we also have 2 other individuals I'll introduce. So first, Bryn Anderson, our VP of Product Management. And Bryn, I think you're pro pineapple, is that correct?
I only believe in having pineapple on pizza. I'm with Tony on this one. If it doesn't have it, then it's not really pizza to me. So, yeah, very pro pineapple. Thanks for asking.
And then last but certainly not least, Kevin Martin, our solution engineer. Kevin, tell us about yourself and of course the critical question.
Lovely stuff. So unusual to be the only person who doesn't like pineapple on pizza. But I'm more firmly in that camp where I would never order it, but if it was on a pizza that was being shared, I wouldn't pick it off either. But Kevin Martin is my name, and at Traction Rec, I'm a solution engineer. So I get the chance to work with new prospects and demos, but also as part of our engagement team to do some engagement with customers to try and get some value out of the platform. But yeah, today I'm really looking forward to showing off a little bit of what Traction Rec can do for childcare.
Wonderful. Thanks, Kevin. And I'm Andrew. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer here at Traction Rec. I had the pleasure of working with community organizations for the last 6 years and nonprofits for the last 10, all on Salesforce and Traction Rec technology. And I am a big believer in pineapple on pizza, and I thought I was in the minority, but obviously we've handpicked an exceptional group here to present today who have a shared belief. To kick us off, where we'd like to start is we'd like to start by hearing a little bit more from Jen and Tony about the Philly Y and their childcare operations and all the things that encompasses. We'll talk a little bit about their journey and where they're at right now with their technology. And then we will, towards the back half, move over and put the spotlight on Kevin, and he can share a little bit of a demo of some of the solutions that we see Ys, Js, Boys and Girls Clubs, other organizations adopting today with Traction Rec and Salesforce. But to kick us off, Jen, do you want to start by telling us a little bit, please, about not just the Philly Y, but also the youth development portfolio?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Just to give a little bit of an idea of our scale and scope that can kind of help set us in this conversation and do a little table setting. The Greater Philadelphia Y serves about 27,000 camper weeks, and that equates to about 6,000, a little over 6,000 unique campers for day camp programming. Throughout our association, we have 2,400-ish, 2,467 in September for our before and after school enrichment. So we expect that to go up a little bit this month and then kind of stay flat for the academic year. That is a monthly registration for everyone that gets done at the beginning of the year for the full academic year. And then our early learning centers, we have 13 locations that serve over 1,000 kids daily, and that is a weekly registration in Traction. I think the other important things as it relates to Traction about our registration is that our day camp and before and after school enrichment registration can happen, of course, in the branches with our membership team or with our connection center team on the phones, but it's also self-service on our portal. But for early learning, we don't do that as self-service. It's really important for us to really have an open conversation with families about spaces and classrooms and get a tour and really have that personal touch. So we do all of that registration in-house. Andrew, anything else you wanted me to touch on? Does that give us enough to?
It's a great starting place. And yeah, I'll ask you to take it a little step further, but thanks for giving us a bit of an overview of just the scale of the operations, the Greater Philly Y. Can you maybe tell us a little bit too, like, when we chat with childcare teams, there's so many regional considerations that come in, whether that's kind of regional, more kind of city-based, or that's more state-based. Things that always make every childcare operation a little bit unique from organization to organization.
Sure, nothing's ever one size fits all, right? Within our own footprint, we serve 7 counties in Philadelphia and surrounding area, and we have everything from full fee-for-service, full pay programming, of course. Like all of our Y partners, we offer financial assistance opportunities, which can, is just another transaction on an account in there for families to navigate, as well as we accept subsidy and other third-party payment from our local county ELRCs. And on top of that, we also engage in universal pre-K, Philly pre-K, and pre-K counts, which is pre-K counts the state level, the Commonwealth level here in Pennsylvania, and Philly pre-K is at that city level. On top of that, for those pre-K programs, we offer wraparound care. So just imagine, a family who is enrolled in Philly pre-K, which is a 0-fee program, but they also are enrolled in wraparound care, for which they receive most of their, is covered by subsidy. So there's a third-party payment on the account, and then they receive financial assistance to cover the rest. There's a lot of different touches on these accounts, but really grateful to our team here and the partnership with Traction so that we can make sure everybody has access and to childcare as a service and also really has a good understanding of their account.
I definitely echo what you're saying there is it comes from a great place of kind of accessibility of service, and between rising costs for operators and like affordability issues for parents, there's a real sticky middle spot there that everyone's trying to navigate, and lots of different programs. It doesn't make the operations very easy. I'm going to pass over to Bryn. I know she has a couple questions she'd love to ask yourself and Tony about those operations and kind of where maybe some of those sticky parts are.
Yeah, thank you so much on the background. And What I was curious about is, as we know, childcare, a very, very challenging program to deliver. There's a lot of different elements to it, whether it's processes, capacity, registration, the finance piece. I was just wondering, from your perspective, what are some of the common challenges that you face as a childcare operator or program manager?
Jen, did you want to take that? I don't mind. Yeah, I was just, feel free to chime in, Jen, but I was going to say, I think communication is something that a lot of WISE or childcare providers see, and that's communication from to the parents, also to frontline staff, the site directors who are working directly with the children. So that's something that Traction Rec has definitely helped us improve on, whether that's automated reports or information being sent to them, statuses that are a little bit different than other operating systems.
Yeah, that makes sense. Jen, do you have anything you want to add, or?
I think that Tony covered definite real challenges. I think the other piece is just as we manage our wait lists and, really looking at, I'll keep coming back to the word accessibility to our programs, which of course is, on the other side, we're facing the staffing challenges that I know many of our participants on the call are facing. But when we get that new person in, how can we pull people off the wait list as fast as we can and most efficiently as we can without miscommunication? And I'm really excited about some of the things that we haven't implemented yet, but know are available in Traction that we're really excited to, that will kind of like automate pieces of that weren't previously automated for us.
Yeah, gotcha. And one of the things that our team has kind of reported that you kind of touched on a little bit, but just in working with the Philly team, that you have a really strong partnership internally between your operators and your technology team. I was just wondering if you could maybe highlight how you identified the need for that partnership and how you've made it happen.
I'll go first and then I'll pass it to my IT partner, Tony. We're so lucky to have, folks who really, we're all connected by the same mission, of course. And I think that we continue to come back to that. Like, how are we making the member experience better and how are we making the employee experience better? Those are kind of like the two things that we come back to in every discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And our CEO has been great about saying, like, hey, as operators, it's easy to say, like, you don't need to be involved because IT should be organizing a system. But we've learned, and the expectation here is that we are all communicating so that we can poke holes, kick the tires, and make recommendations and really have a say in kind of some of the setup of our courses and our different offerings, as well, because we know what parents are calling us about that they can't find or they're having trouble with, or that our staff can't find or really would love this report XYZ. So it's been really fun. And it also is great to have, folks like Tony who have been in member services before now, having this opportunity to work on the back end of things with a little bit of that operator's mindset. So I'll pass it to, I'll just add one more thing. I just love, like, whenever Tony and our team are partnering, she's like, okay, so does that work for licensing? Right. And it's like that kind of consideration in the partnership that's so helpful.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense.
Yep, I was just going to say, I truly do enjoy, I do have a membership background, so I do understand what it's like at the front line when those frontline staff are registering. I do understand that need, as well as the parent. My son has attended our Y program from kindergarten to 5th grade in the before and after care program. So I do get both sides of that, and I love being able to deliver great service back, knowing what both sides need, including internally as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And just to get into, like, between this partnership, dig in a little bit on a specific topic that I think from talking to you, and know this is important to both of you, but just around child safety and how the two of you or your teams collaborate just around child safety specifically.
I'll maybe this is a good chance to talk about something that we're hoping to pilot for this year with camp, just because it's fresh and top of mind as we prepare for camp registration to open.
Mm-hmm.
We have previously used forms and will continue to use forms to collect like our fee agreements and health forms and some of those pieces of paperwork that families definitely won't have on hand at the time of registration. And we've had a little bit of internal back and forth on like, how long do we want to make the point of sale interaction, right? But we are really excited to be putting in some prompt questions, and the level of limitation that it will put on the parent is relatively minimal. I think it'll be pretty quick, but we will collect so much information that will be a game changer from the employee experience for our camp directors. And all the time spent on follow-up and nagging and please don't forget, we need your blah, blah, blah form. But it will also be just game changing from a risk management standpoint of having so much more information about allergies and IEPs and who we really need to follow up prior to the start of camp. And then I'll also say that, you know, we've done a lot of work on just our reports and how we want them to look so that they're in an order that's usable for our team, especially rosters. Because if you've got like a clunky roster, it just not only slows down the time that the kids get to have fun and makes it hard for parents to find their kids at 5:55 when they're trying to sign out, but it also, you know, really cuts down on that safety piece too, and the length of time for us to know who we have in our care, especially before and after school, and that transition from the academic day to us.
Yeah, and just to second that, I really do want to highlight the classroom management feature that we are able to put the children into specific classrooms, whether that's in our before and after care program or our early learning, that's group supervisor who has the children know who is directly in their care based off of an easy report that you could just run.
Yeah. That's so awesome. And it's great to hear that you're adopting those features so early in your journey with Traction Rec. I actually would love to transition to a little bit of a different topic and selfishly getting a little bit more of your experience being on Traction Rec. So you went live about 6 months ago, and you've been in kind of a phased approach as far as getting live on Salesforce. You were already on Salesforce, but on the Traction Rec package. Just with this context that you're early adopters, or you're early in your process with us, what are some of the wins that you've seen just in that first 6 months that you've been with us?
I would say our migration was at least our first win. It was smooth, it was painless, it took a short amount of time that we thought was going to take a lot longer. We were very anxious about it. And after just a couple of days, when we moved all of our registrations over, we were like, wow, that didn't take that long, or that wasn't that bad. We were really anxious about that. The control that we have over a lot of things in Traction Rec is amazing. That is into the Traction Rec app and also the community site. That's not something that we previously had with our previous system. So being able to control what the families need, what they're looking at, where can they get the receipts, all that kind of stuff was wonderful.
Yeah, that's awesome. Jen, I don't know if you want to add anything to that one.
Sure, I can add. I think that our team did a great job of creating trainings that really led to the success of the frontline team also adjusting to the transition. So there was a lot of thoughtfulness put into not only the content of the trainings, but also to the scheduling of the trainings. And I think even after that, I would say just the team, you know, the Traction Rec team at GPY, the willingness to like, you know, have them watch the training video, but also know that like on the first day of registration, we're going to like show you how to print that report even live if you want, and setting up some of those kinds of like one-on-ones to walk people through stuff, even though they've done the video, but to like see it again, and ask some of those more specific questions. But that's been really smooth, and I don't think it was made overly complicated either.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, layering in that training, having materials available at the time that people need it, that's such a great approach. You've had some registrations since you've been on Traction Rec. So just wondering if you could do a little bit of a comparison, or just what are some of the differences that you saw with registrations in more recent history?
It's funny that you asked that because I remember the first, I think it was like July 2nd or 3rd, because we went live on July 1st. It was shortly after that we were like, oh my gosh, somebody registered on the community. How we didn't tell anybody about it. It wasn't promoted. Like they just did it. And we were like, they didn't call to see how to do it. It was just so user friendly that they did that. And that we were like, well, if somebody could do it, that's how we know it works. And that was honestly like 3 or 4 days after we went live.
That's so awesome.
Oh, it was, and then we were like, well, it must be working. Like there's no bugs, there's no problems, there's no errors. That's amazing. So that was phenomenal.
That's awesome. I think you've had a big registration more recently as well, right?
We did. Oh, go ahead, Jen.
I was just going to add, I don't know if we've shared, we actually launched traction with our childcare programs first. So our launch for membership and youth programs, swim lessons, all that didn't actually happen until very recently, which I think is what Tony's going to talk about right now. So we kind of did, you know, a unique order, I think, on things, but it worked with the academic year and where we were at.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. So our childcare launched July 1st, which was a nice little dabble into Traction Rack. I think it was we kind of got the, it felt like we kind of got the behind the scenes look before everybody else did, which was wonderful. Then October 1st is when our membership and programming launched. And then on October 14th, we had our first live program registration, which was the best that we've had yet. We were all up at 6 a.m. waiting, and it went great. No problems, no errors, very successful.
That's awesome. Yeah, just to, Jen, you touched on it a little bit. You did an initial go live with childcare in July, then memberships and programs was in October. If you want to take a step back, how did that decision get made? How did you guys come to that conclusion on this is the rollout approach that we would want to pursue?
I'm actually going to let Tony speak to that one a little bit, except that I'll just say, like, you know, childcare, we're up for anything. We'll be the guinea pig.
Nice.
Yeah, we so October 1st was always the plan with all of Traction Rack. That was going to be our launch. But realistically, October 1st, we're mid-school year, right? Your people have been registered for 2 months. They've been in school for 2 months. So the biggest question came around billing. So when do we stop billing? When do we start it over again? Do we have to bring these forms over? What about payment methods? There was just a lot that went into that. So we kind of took a step back and we were like, why don't we wait, finish out camp in our previous system and start base before and after care and early learning in the new system. And it was the best thing. I would highly recommend if anybody's ever looking to transition, I would certainly do it in phases. And with childcare, like Jen said, we are go with the flow. It's going to be what it's going to be. And it was very successful.
The early learning piece too, we re-register all of our kids in July for when they move up to their next classroom, et cetera, right? So we do for the next 12 months at that time. So it just was like, oh my gosh, so we're going to like enter all this new data in the old system and then like, you know, it's one more chunk of data to migrate, or do we just do it in the new one?
And it was a really great fresh start. Yeah, like just getting our families on the community to get forms completed, it just made sense for everybody. Instead of logging into this old one for a little bit, transitioning to the new one, it was a great flow.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I love to hear that you aligned it with your business cycles. And there is a lot of work that you can save by picking the right timings, the right windows within those. So that's awesome that you took the time to do that phased approach. We have seen that with a lot of our customers, especially more recently, and have had a lot of success there. So and then just the last question that I have, just to dig in again a little bit on what you've already touched on, but really effective training and rollout strategy with your team. We spend a lot of time working with organizations on strategizing on how is the best way to transition the team from an old system to a new system. What are some of the approaches that you guys felt really helped you succeed in this transition?
I will definitely mention, Jen mentioned it earlier, we did adapt the training platform where you watch the video, you read about it, and then you do it. So it was the read, watch, do. And that was very successful. We also have what we call our traction champions. They are internal Y members who took the leap and really dove in to learn it with us. So we have a really great system of staff at branches and locations that are up to speed with learning about that, learning about the system. Our standard operating procedures, we have a whole SharePoint folder that is accessible for anybody that they can click and search and find what they're looking for. I love being able to help staff real time. We do have a help desk number that they call. We're all on call and I answer it if they have a question that they need answered right away. So that's the best thing, being able to help somebody right in that moment, not waiting a couple of days later. We just really strive for good member service.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much for answering my questions. I know there's it's a lot of transparency to share with such a big group, but really appreciate that. We're actually going to transition to a quick demo. So I'm going to hand over to Andrew and Kevin for now, and then we'll come back and we have a few more questions for you towards the end of the webinar. So thank you so much for your great answers, but appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. Thanks, Tony, and thanks, Bren. Great answers. And I love the Tony, what you said of just like, hey, smooth go live is a win when you're migrating a critical system that's serves 10,000 kids in different programs. That's the goal you should be shooting for. So love that, and cool to hear about the kind of system champions and stuff for training. Real quick, we're just going to do a bit of show and tell, and seeing some questions in the chat that I actually think a lot of the show and tell will touch on nicely. There's some stuff around how people are handling forms and registration and things like that. But just for anyone who might be new to Traction Rec, just a little bit of our perspective on this technology and why we believe so much in these solutions is, first and foremost, Traction Rec is a CRM first solution. What does that mean? It puts the person at the center. And certainly with our customers, we see they have such unique and robust relationships and diverse relationships with their member, their customer, their constituent, whatever language is most appropriate for your organization. And we strive to create a solution where you can see that in one place and you can understand holistically the relationships, interactions, and transactions that will occur across all those lines of business and even across other systems. Going to the next slide, more specifically to childcare, how do we think about that life cycle in our solutions? This will be a bit of the basis for Kevin's demo, but it really starts from kind of the first time that someone kind of puts their hand up and shows interest. And so we heard Jen talk a little bit about, hey, for them, that's going to depend on the line of service they're coming to. If it's the early learning, that's one that'll be handheld more and managed with interaction before they're onboarding. If that's stuff like camp or after school, like they might just go right to the self-service. So we'll talk about that from kind of that initial interest in onboarding through delivery, and then ultimately some of the tools of how you elevate that relationship and back-end efficiencies. So with that, I'll kind of go to the next slide and we'll pass over to Kevin. He is going to take us on that journey. It starts with those first three areas that we're kind of defining as the capture phase, and sort of that, how does someone come in and start that relationship with that line of service. And I think, Kevin, you have this beautiful slide, and then we have this weird, spooky kind of jack-o'-lantern in the corner. So something funky is going on there. You have to tell us about it.
Cheers, Andrew. Good stuff. And just checking in, you guys can hear me okay, panelists? Yeah, give me a quick thumbs up. Folks, before I jump into any demo stuff, I just want to say a quick word of thanks. First to Tony and Jen for the time spent with us and prepping for today, and also for the conversation so far, and also to everybody on the call for joining and spending some time with us and seeing how Traction Rec can work for childcare. As Andrew said, we'll have sort of three small demos today. The first one that we're looking at here is going to be focusing on capturing, right? Capturing interest, capturing registrations, capturing payment details or data from forms. I know that there was a question in our chat specifically about that. So this is the section that we'll be kind of looking at that. And as for our jack-o'-lanterns in the corner here, this is my, basically, I like to tell my demos from the perspective of a user. right? So to start off, we're going to be looking at how our parent or guardian, Halloween, can come in and get themselves registered into childcare. So quick warning, I love a bad pun. So there's going to be a couple of those in this demo. I hope you guys like them as well. Now I'm going to stop short of putting a whole pumpkin on my head, but putting my hat on as Halloween, this is my view of the YMCA Phillies member portal or community portal that I'd log into directly from the website. So this is embedded directly onto the site. And really, this is set up to be our sort of virtual center. What I mean by that is this is sort of my one-stop shop for everything from self-service enrollments and registrations for membership, right through to just asking for help, right? And, you know, it can include things like funding applications or scholarship applications, as you'll see in one of my tiles here. Now, in real TV fashion, what I've done actually is I've gone ahead and applied and been approved for some financial assistance for today. So we're going to see that in action in just a few moments. But look, you know, the Y Philly team told us that this sort of improved online registration experience for parents was one of the biggest impacts of a portal like this. So let's get stuck in and take a look at one of our registrations. And look, as we've kind of discussed in our webinar so far today, and I'm sure is true for everyone on this call. Look, you know, this whole program catalog is designed to be flexible to allow, you know, all of the different use cases for every different community that's represented by the different associations on this call today to really allow you to give the different services that are required by those communities. And really being able to represent your program catalog and your services true to life in this portal, it's really the cornerstone of that improved experience for me as a parent. Not to mention having the idea of cross-pollinating, right? So I can have my aquatics, my camps, and my childcare programs all sitting side by side. So for me as a parent, I can come in and I can build a cart for my household, right? I can build a cart as I kind of expect to do online. For the Philly team, this was really about just giving their members flexibility in how they can register, right? So be it rolling admissions for before and after school, or being it, you know, application-based for early learning, or as we mentioned there as well, sort of registration process or periods for camps. Now, a lot of people here on the call might be using different variations on registration processes. For example, you know, accommodating different working schedules for parents with choose your date type toddler care. Really, again, that's kind of speaking to that flexibility of this program catalog, allowing you to really represent whatever services that you're offering inside this portal effectively for parents and for participants. Now, for today, I'm going to go ahead and get myself signed up for some full-time toddler care. So I'm going to go and select that program and pick my wee one, Jack here. Again, very creative names for today's webinar from myself. But again, as I go through here, what I'm doing is I'm selecting the program that I'm registering for, the person that's being registered, and then I can kind of walk through that whole registration process. And now, as I go through here, a couple of things that I'll be looking at. One will be any add-ons, or so things like AM care, PM care, anything else that you're offering at your association level that can be bundled into this cart purchase at this stage. I'm going to go ahead and skip that for today. The next up is going to be questions, right? Any information that we want to be capturing on our participants at this stage. Now, you have a choice to ask 100 questions, 1 question, or no questions, right? That's entirely within your control to configure. And now you might be looking at this as well and saying, that's not enough questions to be asking. If you are, just stick with me. We'll kind of come to that portion of today's demo in a moment. And you'll notice as well, because I'm a member at the Y here, a lot of these fields are already filled in for me. And next up, if I had any waivers or contracts that I need to be signed, I could be surfacing that here. But I'm actually brought straight through to my cart summary. And I can really sort of review all the details of this particular registration. And if I come into my cart, you'll actually see that funding scholarship that I mentioned a moment ago, that's being applied automatically for me to this cart purchase, not just for this initial purchase, but also for any future drafts that I might have. That's just the system working in my favor in the background and applying that automatically for me. Now, as well as that, because I'm actually a member here and I've made some purchases before, I can go ahead and I can settle up today's payment with a couple of clicks rather than using my saved payment method inside of the system here. So I can just select my credit card. I want to use that for my future payments. And with a couple of clicks, I've confirmed my spot in a really sought after childcare program. Now, what you'll probably also though remember is those questions that I didn't ask just a moment ago during that registration. Really important information that we want to be capturing. And of course, as we discussed just a moment ago with the YPhilly team live on our webinar here, something that we can use not just for childcare, but of course for camp as well, and indeed for any other services that you might be offering at your association. So how do we capture that data, but also focus on that purchasing experience? So now that I'm back on my homepage, you'll notice this new notification center on the right-hand side, and I've got my outstanding form. Look, the reason that we've kind of decoupled those two pieces is kind of the same reason that there's a big buy now button on Amazon when you go to purchase something, right? That time to purchase is the most important metric for designing a personalized experience for your constituents when they're logging into their portal, right? Now, again, for me as a parent, I can go ahead, I can come to the site and I can secure my place in this program. That's what I came to the site in the first place to do. That's taken care of. But now also what I can do is I can take the time and go talk to my family physician or look in the filing cabinet downstairs in the house and make sure I'm capturing all of those most up-to-date medical pieces of data and submitting them as part of my my application. So again, that's kind of what we're talking about when we're thinking, I guess, that positive parent experience. Now, for the YMCA and Philly, on the other hand, what we're doing is we're leveraging the world's #1 CRM platform in Salesforce to ensure that the information on all those participants is captured and recorded before their start date. Now, what does that actually mean? It means things like validation rules up top that I can't submit without attaching a file, for example. It also means any automations in the background. It means using reports to understand what forms are still in that incomplete stage, right? Now, again, me, Kevin, as the solution engineer at Traction Rec, I love all of that sort of technical aspects. But for me as Halloween, our parent, I'm much more interested in my household. And this is the type of information that I have available on my household right from within my self-service portal here. So I can see that enrollment that I just made for young Jack. I can see any information on the rest of my household members. And as I come down, I can even see any future payments that I have upcoming for things like my childcare, as well as my membership services, all in this single place. So really, really powerful for me as a parent, being able to come in here, not just enroll, but also manage my whole experience at the Y Center.
All right, thanks, Kevin. Great overview of the registration experience and just the self-service capabilities. And heard from Tony is you love the hey, it was easy enough that people were doing it before we even told them they could or should. That's the kind of accessibility we love to hear about. The next phase we get into is now that we got everyone signed up and lined up, we got to deliver childcare operations, which is definitely one of the most challenging parts, as we heard about. Just so dynamic, and a lot of the headwinds today, especially around staffing and flexibility of service offerings stuff like that. So I think you're going to go through a little bit of what are some of the baked in tools that come with Traction Rec and Salesforce for helping that.
Absolutely, 100%. And we're going to basically switch gears a little bit here, folks. So hat off as Halloween, our parent, hat on as our childcare or our sort of staff focused users. First of all, childcare administrator Frank N. Stein. Again, with the bad puns. I'm just not going to stop while I have the microphone. I'm sorry about that. But look, what I really want to do is I want to look at how we can use some of the tools to sort of really deliver our day-to-day service and what makes that service so impactful. We're going to be looking at Salesforce from an internal user's perspective. So let us know in the chat if this is your first time viewing Salesforce, if you are a seasoned pro, or if you've dabbled in it in some way. We'd love to just kind of get a read on your experience level as we're jumping in here. So anyway, hat on as Frank. And this is my view as a member of the staff at the YMCA in Philly. And again, what I'm going to jump into is where that information, where that data from that registration that we just passed through, where's that all landing into? It's going to land into a record just like the one you can see here. This is my center for managing everything to do with my full-time toddler care program. So on the left, I've got my details relating to that program, but I really want to focus in on what's on the right-hand side here. Namely my actual enrollments here, right? So you can see I've got my different statuses. I've got my, which is great for managing capacities, of course, but it can also serve as like an early warning light, right? So if, for example, while this wasn't the case with Y Philly, if, for example, I saw that, a lot of members were having problems getting themselves registered, getting stuck in that registration process, I might expect to see a lot of draft enrollments, all right? So again, I have those two sides of it, using it for capacity management, but also for sort of early warning signals. If I come into my active enrollments, I can see we've got young Jack, who's just been added into our program. And we'll also notice that we have a couple of people on our wait list here who've registered just after me during that program process. But it's actually this person's lucky day. We're going to go ahead. We have some extra capacity all of a sudden on our program. So we're able to offer this waitlister a spot in our full-time care. And to do that, I've got a couple of options, right? I can either pick up the phone and ask them, do they want to accept or cancel their waitlist spot? Or what I can do is I can actually leverage that community portal we saw a moment ago, and I can just hit confirm waitlist and notify. And what that's going to do is it's going to send an email to the green household and basically allow them to either accept or reject that position themselves, right? So I'm avoiding that potential phone tag experience that I might have otherwise from calling through and asking our constituents. So again, once that email is received, I can just jump, I'll have a link into my community portal. I can select on that, I'll be brought straight to that My Account page we just saw a moment ago, and I can either give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down, whether I want to accept that. Now, at the YMCA Philly, we're taking that a step further, right? We're actually automating that whole process of sending emails, allowing for that acceptance and rejection. And what that automation is doing is just looking at our priority on our wait list and moving down through all of our enrollees in that section. So for me, as a childcare admin, it's another task off my desk. For the Y, it's maximizing our capacity. And for a parent, it means that they never slip through the cracks, right? So all around, everybody's winning from that small piece of automation. Now, to wrap up this piece here, what I'm going to do is just send a quick email to all of our participants. And to do that, I'm going to cheat a little bit and just take my example from my other screen, select my template, and pop my message just in below here. I'm going to send this to everyone who actually made a purchase and joining this program, and hit send. So again, when I'm managing a program of over 3,500 attendees, these sorts of ad hoc mass messaging is really, really powerful. Of course, I'm not just limited to sending emails. I can be sending SMSs if I would prefer, but that's just landing in all of our attendees' inboxes as we speak. Now, that's a lot about sort of the registration end of things. What about the other end in terms of our day-to-day delivery? So again, we have some on-platform purpose-built tools that Traction Rec is providing to allow me to maximize my impact in these programs. The first is our attendance management. So here, again, I can manage who's present, who's not present, and any notes that are associated with those individuals. That's just generating data points inside of my system that I can use for real-time reports on any of my attendees, something that we're going to see in a lot more detail in a moment. And as Tony mentioned a moment ago, that classroom management tool, this is just allowing us to group together our individual registrants depending on who's enrolled in the programs. And again, we think back to the numbers of people that we have enrolled in our camp weeks and in our childcare programs. It's really, really powerful for me to manage that manage that scale of what we're delivering. But what I really want to focus in on for today is actually one of our scanning capabilities. And what we can do here is, again, at the YMCA in Philly, we're running childcare with over 100 different locations. And in doing so, we have a lot of requirements around actually checking in and checking people out. And instead of needing to come up with a full piece of hardware for capturing those different registrations and otherwise, what I can do is I can just use my mobile app here to scan individuals in and out. So again, just allowing me to really build up those different partnerships with different schools that I might have in my area there. So really, really powerful piece of what I can do with the platform here. Again, the Salesforce mobile app, that's just a free app that can be downloaded from any app store, either Google Play or from Apple themselves. So just a couple of tools that we can be using on the platform for managing that delivery of our services.
That's awesome, Kevin. Yeah, certainly the mobile use cases, whether it's scanning people in when you're on site, maybe out of school or something like that, or trying to do, you got to unload 30 kids from a bus in 90 seconds, being able to do it en masse, I know are big wins for a lot of customers. All right, we only have like 2 or 3 minutes left, Kev, because we do want to leave some time at the end so that we can have any kind of final questions and hear a little bit more from Tony and Jen as we wrap up. But you're going to go through bit more of the, hey, how does all this data roll up into that visibility of that 360, the power of the reporting, and a light kind of hint of, hey, how do you touch on some of the complex parts of management?
Sure thing. Sounds good. So last character here is really is our head of childcare, clairvoyant. So putting my hat on as that individual. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring up one example of someone who's taking part in our childcare program. Again, this is my single record of Mr. Usain Bolt that lives in the system across childcare, memberships, donations, facility bookings, whatever it might be. There's one individual inside of this system, and that's a really important piece. That's kind of the backbone of how we can deliver some of these reports that I've mentioned, and also some of the automations that we can really start to use as well. So everything within that sort of relationship managed in one place. And that extends right up to their household as well. Same sort of visibility, but now I'm looking at all the members within that single position. So those forms that we saw a moment ago, once they're submitted from our portal, they're landing in here for review by our team, but also for finance, right? For managing things like our different third-party payers, be them municipal, be them private, be them provincial, whatever it might be. I can manage all of those in those different avenues right from in here. And in terms of actually delivering those different splits, I have a lot of flexibility here. I can either split these payments by a percentage or by an individual dollar amount. So again, I know a lot of people on the call here joining from Canada, particularly valuable for that $10 a day childcare use case. For me, as the head of childcare, it's just really, it means that I have a lot of agility, right? For any sort of policy changes, I have the tools here to be able to support any subsidies or programs or policies that are associated with that. So I know I've only got 1 minute left here, so I want to just show a couple of quick examples of, or one quick example of one of our dashboards. Again, something I love to talk about at length, along with a lot of other things, as is apparent from my time management here. But really, this dashboard, these are a really powerful part of our platform here. I think it's worth mentioning just for about 60 seconds. Really, this is where we can start to visualize all of that real-time data that's happening across our platform, from registrations through to attendance markers, facility visits, whatever it might be, right down to the bottom line figures as well. What's really important, and if you come away from my little presentation here with nothing other than this, I'd be happy. Any piece of data that lives on the platform can be reported on. Those reports happen in real time, and all of those reports can be generated into a dashboard exactly like this one. And just to kind of round us off here and bring me back to my mobile use case, I'm not just limited to using these dashboards on my computer. I can come in here and I can actually view these through my phone if it'll catch up with me. I can come in here into the mobile app in this very same way, and I can view all those dashboards, bring them with me in my pocket. So look, don't want to take away from our Q&A session as well, but I hope that gives you an idea of how we can start to leverage some of those platform use cases for delivering childcare services for your association. Andrew.
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, sorry, more to show than we got time for, as is often the case. Maybe just what I'll ask is kind of a little bit of a question for Jen and Tony, and then we'll pass for Brandon. We can move into some Q&A. I see tons of questions in the chat, and I think lots are getting answered, but I'm sure there's lots that also we could revisit, or maybe didn't get a chance to get to. But Jen, Tony, can you just set us a little bit of hey, you're 6 months into being live after a smooth migration, and you're hopefully starting to be able to look forward a little bit and some of the things you're excited about, whether that's technology or not technology at all. Just give us a little bit of what's exciting you about Greater Philly youth development and where you're going in the next couple of years.
Well, I spoke about one of the big things. I'm really looking forward to collecting more information, especially as it relates to, health and safety upon, at the point of sale. And of course, what that's going to do for our frontline team. I think I'm also really excited. I feel really grateful for the relationship that our team has with the traction support team, because I think there is a little more work that can be done around some of the subsidy stuff that we know varies from county to county, let alone state to state. So we're really thankful for the support and understanding of that as a priority in our relationship with our traction team. And then I'm just really thrilled that, we have not seen any issues with high volume registration, because we do have high volume registration, and I expect that will continue to grow in terms of the number of locations and the volume on reg days. So, when I think a few years down the line, it comes back to kind of my tagline, which is like, helps us serve more kids better, right? So whatever we can do to serve more kids better. And I think that so far, what we're seeing in terms of the volume and the ability to manage the number of locations is trending where we want to trend. Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, I will just mention as well, we are only, of course, 6 months in, and staff are pretty comfortable with it already. I can only imagine what this is going to be like in a couple years. I know that was not the same case previously with our old system, so I think it's great. 6 months in, and they're pretty content with it. It's going to be great for a couple more years.
That's great. Thank you both so much. Bryn, I'll turn it over to you. I like questions. There are a real collection. Some are probably for the Philly team, and seeing Liz and some of the other members from GPY in there already answering them. Tony as well too, but probably maybe some questions for us. But Bryn, yeah, we'll leave it to you with the 5 minutes we got left.
Yeah, I've picked a couple out of the list of questions, and so I probably won't be able to address all of them. But first one I wanted to start with is just a question for you, Jen and Tony. Is with the licensing guidelines and dealing with parents, how do you help them be compliant so that you're not getting hit with some violations?
I mean, unfortunately, our transition to Traction Rec didn't magically make parents read everything. So we still, face those issues with the follow-up. And I think that that's a piece that, of course, having that, what we're piloting with camp, and I would love, if it goes well, to expand it to before and after school enrichment and early learning, is collecting as much as we can at the point of sale, because then they can't start care until we have it. But I just don't see that as being possible with some of the more still very important things like a health form, which, kids are getting physicals at different times of the year. So I think there's a piece of that will always be that personal follow-up from the site director or a central admin person to help with that. Probably not the answer that you wanted to hear, but we're still doing a lot of follow-up just to say, hey, remember, this is important for your child's safety.
Yeah. one of the questions that came up is, did you start registration in the legacy system and then transition, or did you start registration, Tony? I feel like you kind of touched
Yeah.
on that a bit, but if you don't mind getting into just a little more detail.
Sure, yeah. So we typically register in April or May for next year's childcare. So this coming April or May, we'll be registering for next year. So we did start it in our legacy system. We only at that time did collect the registration fee. That was the only thing that we entered at that time. So there was not any outstanding balances or what's due for the year or anything like that in our previous system. So we were able to successfully re-register everybody into Traction with a fresh start. And then we just removed the registration fee when we re-registered them.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yep.
Awesome. And then another one that came up, and I know it's pretty topical. It sounds like you're in the process of building this childcare statement. So what are your plans for taxes, FSA, etc.?
Yeah, that's a great great topic, right? Because we're going to be migrating. We have two systems that we kind of have to pull from. So we do use a third party to help with that. Their name is iGenex. They do help with a lot of that. But it is going to be just pulling two different systems and making sure the data gets over for tax statements. For childcare statements, we are actually working with Traction Rec right now. They are helping us develop a console that pulls depending on what your naming conventions are for your plan billing schedules and things like that. Most of ours are the date of care, so they're helping us pull that through so it's easily accessible for parents to download and self-serve on the community.
Awesome. And
Yeah.
I'm just going to hit you with one more question from
Yeah.
the chat. And it was actually way up at the top. How have you organized around building reports, rosters, dashboards, etc.?
Yeah, it's wonderful, actually. I love how organized it is. Be happy to share with anybody who ever wants to see it. We do have one childcare folder, and within that childcare folder, it is separated by before and after care, early learning, nursery school, et cetera, et cetera. And then within those lives each school name, whether that's Lower Gwinnett Elementary or Bluebell. And then in those folders are all of the reports for each location. So each location does have an allergy, an emergency pickup, medication, special accommodations. And that is something that I did create for each location. So a lot of it's just playing around with your filters and saving and copying new. Additionally, in my main childcare folder is a dashboard report that does link directly to the dashboard, which I know Jen does use every single day of her life. So that does get updated in real time, just like Kevin mentioned in his demo.
It's awesome.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you. I think we're at time. Want to make sure that we're respectful of everybody's day, but really appreciate the two of you joining us. It's just been such an awesome journey to go with you and see you using all of the features that we've built and are on the Traction Rec platform. So thank you so much for your time today. Thank you everybody for joining us, Kevin, Andrew, for your support in facilitating demos, etc. And hope everybody's got a really nice Halloween planned for you and your families. So thank you.